Ironic, isn't it? My first video on this channel was me praising Matt Walsh and his documentary titled What is a Woman on the Daily Wire. I mostly agreed with him in that video and I liked everything that he said, his arguments and all of that. But it's ironic because in this video, which is my second video on the channel, following the video that I made a couple days ago, I'm going to be arguing against Matt Walsh and I don't agree with him on the topic of abortion, that is. So Matt Walsh is anti-abortion and I am pro-abortion, and he has made a video where he talks about the arguments that people make for abortion and why he disagrees with them. So what I'm going to do is go through the video and give my thoughts on each argument against abortion. So let's get into the video.
Argument number 1. A woman has the right to choose. Answer. No, nobody has a universal right to choose. We all agree that some choices must be prohibited. The question is not if women should be able to choose generally, but if they should be able to choose to intentionally destroy innocent human life. If you say they do, then you have to defend that choice on its merits. You can't defend the choice based simply on the fact that it is.
Yep, I agree with him on this one. It's a pretty dumb argument and I hope nobody uses it. It's not an argument at all and he actually addressed it pretty well.
2. Pro-lifers want to control women's bodies. Answer. No. The body in dispute is not the mother's. The question again is whether the body of the human in her womb can be intentionally destroyed. The child's body is the one at issue here, and we as pro-lifers are the ones trying to defend it.
That's another pathetic argument for abortion, and I hope nobody uses it. I never actually heard anyone using it, so I do hope nobody uses it. In fact, it's a pretty dumb argument, and he addressed it pretty well. Let's move on.
3. Pro-lifers are only pro-birth. They don't care about babies after they're born. Answer. You have no data or evidence to support that stupid claim. Besides, our position is that babies in the womb have moral worth equal to babies outside. Of course we believe babies outside have worth. That's the whole basis of our argument. Our assertion is that babies in the womb have worth, and that's based on our contention that babies and all people outside have worth. Our argument hinges on the comparison between humans inside and outside the womb. And our contention is that there is no inherent difference in these groups aside from their physical location.
Again, I never heard anyone using this argument. It's pretty stupid, so yeah, let's just move on. It's a bad argument.
4. The fetus is just a clump of cells. Answer. We're all clumps of cells. Some of us are far clumpier than the average infant. None of that is relevant. What's relevant is whether the fetus is a distinct and separate human entity, which he is.
Bruh, who makes these arguments? That's pretty fucking stupid. Why would anyone make that argument? What the fuck?
5. The fetus is not a person, but a potential person. Answer. No, he is again a distinct human entity. If this is not the definition of a person, then none of us are persons. Also, even if he is a potential person, it doesn't automatically follow that we should destroy him. Do you believe that all non-persons can be killed? What if I decapitated a bald eagle? How would you feel about that? You see, you're wrong that the unborn child isn't a person. By definition, he is. But even if you were right, you'd still be wrong. That's how wrong you are.
Alright, look, I'm getting mad, bruh. I'm getting mad. These are pretty bad arguments for abortion, and I am pro-abortion, but these arguments are just terrible, bruh. They're terrible.
6. Women have reproductive rights. Answer. This one I agree with. Nobody should ever be forced to reproduce. But birth is not reproduction. Conception is reproduction. By the time the abortion is procured, reproduction has already occurred.
Another terrible argument. Another terrible argument. You know what? Let's just move on from this one.
7. What about rape and incest? Answer. That's not an argument. That's a hypothetical. Rape and incest only account for about 1% of all abortions. These are hard and rare cases. They might mitigate the individual moral culpability of a woman who chooses abortion, but they don't change the fact that the unborn child is a distinct human entity, i.e. a human being, i.e. a person, and therefore worthy of the same protections the rest of us receive. We can't kill the child for the sins of the father. If you want to execute somebody for rape, execute the rapist, not the baby.
I don't really care about this argument, to be honest. I've heard it being brought up many times before. And the reason I don't care about it is because I believe that abortion should be legal no matter the circumstances. And I will explain why towards the end of the video, so keep watching if you want to find out. But for now, we are going to continue with his debunks.
8. Women cannot be forced to remain pregnant. They have bodily autonomy. Answer. No, they don't have absolute autonomy, and yes, they should be forced to remain pregnant if the other option is to kill the child. If this sounds harsh to you, then consider the fact that we already force parents to do all kinds of things for their born children. We force them to feed their children, clothe their children, care for their children every second of the day. We impose responsibilities on parents that we don't impose on anybody else. I am required to do things for my child that I don't have to do for any other human on earth. If parents don't want to fulfill that obligation, they must find somebody who will. They can't simply leave their kid on the side of the road, nor can they drown their kid in the bathtub. Murder and neglect are not acceptable parenting strategies for babies outside the womb, and they shouldn't be for babies inside the womb either.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to disagree with him for the first time in this video. He's wrong about bodily autonomy. We all have bodily autonomy, and in fact, human rights are based entirely on bodily autonomy. So when he says we don't have bodily autonomy, he's actually wrong. We do. I want you to think about this. Do you believe that a woman has the right to choose what happens to her body? Yes or no? If your answer is no, then you're basically saying that a woman does not have the right to choose what happens to her body, which means if someone rapes a woman, then that is fine because that woman doesn't have the right to choose what happens to their body. That is why rape is wrong, and that is why it's illegal, because you are forcing someone to use their body in a way that they don't want to. So when you say that women don't have bodily autonomy, which is the basis of human rights in the first place, you're lying to yourself, my friend. We all do. So if you say a woman doesn't have the right to choose what happens to her body, that leads to so many problems because you're going to be able to legalize things such as rape, because, well, it doesn't violate the woman's rights, right? But if you say yes, okay, fine, the woman has the right to choose what happens to her body. Now, if the woman chooses not to fall pregnant, which is going to change her body entirely, what is wrong with that? Isn't that her exercising her right? I don't get it. Another thing that Matt said that bothered me is when he said that women should be forced to fall pregnant if the only other option is to terminate the pregnancy. And he gave a pretty terrible analogy, I must say, and I will explain why it is terrible. The analogy that he gave is that of a parent, of how we force parents to take care of their children. We are basically forcing responsibilities on parents to take care of their children because that's, well, their responsibilities. Now, I'm going to tackle this at a different angle because there is an experience that I have with someone who went to school with me, and I want to use that person as an example to demonstrate why this is such a bad idea. And I'm not going to disclose any names for obvious reasons. Now, what happened was I was in high school, and this girl fell pregnant after having sex with a teacher. The intention wasn't to fall pregnant, obviously, because, well, obviously they don't want to get caught, but they did have sex, and obviously she fell pregnant by accident and she didn't want the child. Now, in my country, you are not allowed to abort a child. It's illegal. But this woman was forced, I don't want to say woman, this girl was forced, obviously, to have that baby and be pregnant, and she did have the baby. But the thing was, the baby was growing up in a terrible environment. That woman, I hate saying woman, that girl didn't love the baby as much as people thought she did, because she didn't want that baby in the first place. She ended up committing suicide because she couldn't handle the responsibility of taking care of a child, and that came with so many bad consequences because now the child is an orphan and she goes from parent to parent. By parent to parent, I mean foster parents. Now, why did I bring this up? Because forcing a woman to have a baby when she doesn't want to have a baby also comes with so many terrible consequences, not just for the woman but also for the baby. So I never understood this whole argument of, yeah, we have to force them to have the baby because the baby has rights. You have to look at it in the other from the other angle, not just be one-sided like these people are. I don't get it.
9. Fetuses aren't conscious, therefore we can kill them. Answer. First of all, how do you know? We know basically nothing about the nature of consciousness. We can't even agree on what consciousness is, much less where it comes from or how it works. Besides, let's say that they aren't conscious. How does that justify murder?
While I do agree with him that the whole consciousness argument is pretty stupid, and I actually used to use that argument myself, I don't agree with him on one thing: the usage of the word murder. What he doesn't realize is that murder is the unlawful killing of a human being, and if abortion is legalized, then it's not murder. And also, you would have to classify a fetus as a human being, which I personally don't. Now, that's I think it's pretty stupid because it's only murder if, well, it's illegal. If we were to legalize killing other people, then it wouldn't be murder. So I don't like the usage of that word.
10. Finally, pro-lifers are just a bunch of men trying to boss women around. Answer. Not true. The pro-life movement is and has always been led primarily by women. Also, it's irrelevant. Also, it's a double-edged sword. Roe v. Wade was decided by only men. Should we overturn it on that basis? I'm guessing you'd say no. That's why that argument doesn't work. None of these arguments work, which isn't a surprise given that you're trying to justify the murder of children. There are no good arguments for that, as should hopefully now be obvious.
I do agree with him on that one. It's a pretty terrible argument, and I'm grateful that I've never heard anyone using it. I guess people in my country are smart enough to understand that it's a terrible argument. So you might be asking yourself, what argument do I have for being pro-abortion, for abortion? And I'm going to give you my one argument that I use all the time and what makes me pro-abortion. Now, I want to ask you a question. It's a moral argument, by the way. It's not about legality, it's about morality. Now, I'm going to ask you one question. Should any person in this world be allowed to use another person's body without their consent? Yes or no? I will repeat. Should any human being in this world be allowed to use another person's body without their consent? Yes or no? Now, you should be careful how you answer the question because both answers have responses to them, and I'm going to tell you why. If you answer the question no, then, well, that's exactly what the fetus does. The fetus is using another person's body without their consent. So why is it allowed for fetuses to use other people's bodies without consent and not for fully grown adults to use other people's bodies without their consent? Another example that I can give is that of a body organ. It doesn't matter who you are. Nobody should be allowed to use your body organs without your consent, and that's actually part of the law. Now, if somebody was to take your organ without your consent, that would be considered illegal. So my question is, why is it that we allow fetuses to do the same? They're basically using another person's body organ without that person's consent. So how is that different? That's my question. So basically, if you say that a fetus should be able to use a woman's body without her consent, you're basically saying that anybody can use that woman's body without their consent. Because, well, most people who are anti-abortion claim that a fetus is a person. So if they say that a person should not be allowed to use a woman's body without a permission, then they're essentially saying a fetus should not be allowed to use a woman's body without their consent. Now, the only way out of that is to say that a fetus is not a person, which would go against the argument, and I don't think they're going to do that anyway. Now, obviously, they're not going to answer yes to that question, because if you say yes, a person should be allowed to use another person's body without consent, that would lead to so many problems, because things like rape would be okay, because you'll be having sex with someone against their consent. So obviously they're not going to go with that. They're going to say no to my question. But if they say no to my question, then they're essentially agreeing with me, because a fetus is going to be using that woman's body without her consent. She doesn't want that thing inside of her, so why are we forcing her to keep that thing inside of her? It's essentially forcing someone to donate an organ, which we don't do. So why is a fetus different? Why are we giving special rights to fetuses and not to other people? It's kind of a special pleading fallacy for me if you think about it. So that is essentially why I am pro-abortion. I believe that nobody should be able to use another person's body without their consent, and I believe that a fetus is doing exactly that. So why can't we just get rid of it? Now, with all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. And if you want to know more about my thoughts on abortion, please follow my Discord link below and I will find you there. With all that being said, thank you for watching. My name is Don and I will see you in the next video. Hopefully it's not going to be Matt Walsh, because I watch a lot of his videos and I might respond to one of his videos again. Hopefully something different. So see you next time. DaniHaiz out. Bye.